Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Cilinix Crypto. I hope you're all doing great in even these dire market circumstances. And welcome to your middle of the day market update. It's not really a middle of the day market update, or it depends on your time zone. But still wanted to do a full update on the markets. It's a little bit later than I would have liked. I'm recording from a bit of a hotel room, as you can see in the background. I'm away for a couple of days. But I'm still posting these middle of the day market updates, right? And I also announced this on Saturday that the updates would be a little bit less frequent for a couple of days. So that's still the case for a couple of days. I'm still trading. I'm still very much monitoring the markets. So don't worry about that. But a little bit less videos to spend that time on some other things. I think it was worth it. But in this video, we're fully back. We're going to do a full middle of the day market update. We'll talk about today. We have to talk about some fundamentals first of all, because the fundamentals at this point of time are the key thing moving the markets. And then we will talk about, okay, what has it moved in the markets? Okay, so we'll talk about Bitcoin, where it is right now. We're currently sitting at $92,300. It's still quite bearish right now, especially the fundamentals are not amazing, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And then everything that's going on right now will make a little bit more sense. So I mean, the story that I want to tell you about Bitcoin, and that's therefore also true on Ethereum and XRP. We will talk about that, and most altcoins, although there's a couple of altcoins that I wanted to spend some special time talking about, because I actually do think those look a little bit better. Okay, so we will end the video on a bit of a positive note with those altcoins. I think that there's actually opportunities there. So that's nice. But the general story that I told you last week, right? The last video I made on Saturday, I said it, and that is still the case, I think, right now, is that, purely technically, this is a WCT. That's not what I wanted to look at. But purely technically, if you look at Bitcoin right here, I mean, we've had some nice bottoming price action. I mean, I have to say that the move right here we had with the NYO was actually quite bearish. We had a high volume spike during the New York session open. There was a bit of a liquidation spike. We tapped that weak high that we had, and we had the point of control at the top of that. So that is definitely not amazing, but ultimately we're forming a lot of bullish divergences. The selling pressure is definitely decreasing if you compare it to Thursday, Friday last week. There's just, and it doesn't really matter where it's coming from, but there seems to be this massive seller on Binance. If you take a look at all of these exchanges until November the 14th, you can see that they were kind of moving alongside each other, right? So there was definitely selling, but the selling was kind of spread out. And now you can see that there is a lot of selling from some sort of a Binance specific seller. That could be a market maker, that could be a fund, that could be a major whale, could be anything, but that is going on right now. Now, ultimately, then the main question has not been answered, because the main question is, okay, why are we selling off? And I still think the key reason for why we are selling off is instability, and that is fundamental instability. You can see the volatility index on the screen right now, which is the best indicator or the best measure of instability in the financial markets. And that is still very high. It's still very elevated, but it's also rallying up. That's not what you want to see. You don't want to see it high. And even if it's high, you want to see it decreasing, like we saw Friday, the 17th of October. Gold is not rallying that much anymore, but a lot of these instabilities that are causing the volatility index to rise have already been priced into gold since August with its massive rally. So I think that's good to understand. But the volatility index is still increasing. That's why equities, as you can see right here with the S&P 500, are pushing down. And that's also why our crypto assets, which are very correlated to equities and that move because of the same reasons, are also pushing down, right? I mean, Bitcoin is pushing down, and therefore most altcoins you can see are correlated to Bitcoin. There's a couple of altcoins, such as Hype, that I think are actually holding on fairly well. We'll talk about a couple of those at the end of the video, like I said, but ultimately that is the status quo. That is what's going on. And then today, it was a Monday, right? So then you hope that the fundamentals become a little bit better over the course of the, I think in the weekend, I also posted on YouTube, which I post quite often there as well, that one of the key things to watch, if you want to make it easy for yourself, is the volatility index. So that's the VIX, which you can see right here on the screen on Monday, right? So with the new week open, whether that was going to open higher or lower. It opened higher. Why? Well, there's always multiple reasons why instability in the markets is increasing. But one of the key things that happened today is we had repo operations again. Okay, so repo operations, when those happen, there is liquidity stress in the United States. I'm very white right now, as you can see. That's because of the white background. And you can see the repo operations that we had overnight this Monday were actually bigger than the ones we had last week, for example. So that is bad. That means that there still is liquidity stress. Now, in our defense, the SOFR spread seems to have remained the same. Right, so that is also, if that's elevated, if there's a high spread, that also means that there's liquidity problems. And you can see that that seems to be a little bit more stable. So that's a good thing, right? But the fact that liquidity problems are still here, that's a bad thing, okay? And that's why the volatility index is increasing, together with the fact that the probability whether we are going to get a rate cut in December, yes or no, that is also uncertain, and that's moving towards the bearish side. At this point of time, we have a 41% chance that we're going to get a rate cut in December. That's not great. And then there's also some other unrelated headlines coming out regarding some things in the world and regarding some tariffs news, United States and Venezuela, for example. So just instability. That is why equities are pushing down. That's why Bitcoin is pushing down. But like I said, I mean, because those fundamentals are bearish, look, when I take a look at the long-term chart here on Bitcoin, we have strong support in this entire level between 94,000 and 90,000. I think this is going to be the bottom. I still think it's going to be the bottom. We have major support here, both relevant volume-related areas there. We have a fair value gap. We have the 200 EMA. We have a psychological support level. We have the 0.618 FIB that at this point of time, at least, we are still holding. We're probably going to break below that, but ultimately we can reclaim that. I just think that because of these fundamentals, it's still difficult to buy here. Now, I'm personally buying here, okay? I'm buying spot Bitcoin, but I know a lot of you are not really interested in buying spot Bitcoin. You're going to long it. Would I long it right now if I were you? No, because I think because of the fundamentals, even though ultimately I think this is the bottom, this is the area where we are going to form at least a local bottom. I think it's more and more likely with these fundamentals that we're still going to spike down into 87 and 86,000, where we also have an older fair value gap, where we also have support, and that from there we can reclaim, form a local support, and then get some more recovery from there as well. This is what I've said last week. This is still what I expect right now. All right, and that's on Bitcoin. A lot of altcoins right now will be very correlated with that. So if you take a look at something like XRP, I think XRP is actually relatively stable, but it does look very likely that we're going to test 2.1 and 2.05. Drop down into that, find support, maybe spike down a bit lower, like I said, which is also a possibility on Bitcoin. But ultimately, I do also think on XRP, that 2.1 and 2.05, which is also a very relevant, strong support level, relevant volume area, I think we're going to hold that. With Ethereum, it's a little bit weaker. You can see right now on the yearly rolling VWAP, it's dropping down below a very important level with high volume. Ethereum looks a little bit more likely that we're going to drop down into 2,900 and 2,800. And therefore, it's similar to Bitcoin, but it's a little bit weaker than XRP. So that is what I think about the majority of the markets. Let's talk about some altcoins where I think, well, that actually has a chance to do a little bit better. First of all, Aster. Aster is actually holding on incredibly well. It doesn't really look like we're going to get a breakout here. But we have some strong support at 1.15. We have strong support at 1.08. I think somewhere in that level, we will be able to find support. And if Bitcoin finds a local bottom, then I think Aster can actually turn this fake out, which I think this is a fake breakout for now. I think it can turn it into a real breakout, right? With price action like this. So I think that's definitely regarding the, there's an alert on Aster that just went off for me. Hopefully you did not hear that sound. But I think something like this, for example, is a possibility on Aster. And therefore it's one of the only altcoins where I think, okay, it actually has a chance to rally. And ICP has hit the major support level around $5, which we've spoken about in a lot of videos. You can see a lot of shorts have gotten out of the price. I think ICP has a good chance to get some sort of a relief rally from these shorts exiting and getting a reclaim of this level around $5. So that's interesting as well. I mean, what more is there? I'm not sure if I want to talk about that. Zcash and privacy coins have pulled back quite a bit, so I'm not too bullish on those at this point of time. That could still turn around. And if we look at Zcash, for example, like the key support level I'm looking at here at 550, 540, something like that, which is still quite a far way down. Something like that could be interesting, right? So at this point of time, I'm not too interested in that, but ultimately I am still keeping them on my watch list, and I am still looking at them for potential trades. But outside of that, there's not much right now in altcoin land that I want to spend too much time talking about. Hopefully tomorrow that will be better. So I'll keep you updated on that. I'll be back with a new video tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, thank you for watching. Take care and bye.